All right, welcome back to the Biblewheel program. For this session, we're going to be talking about the 6th century and in relation to the the six books of the Bible. The sixth book of the first cycle is Joshua. The sixth book of the second cycle is Hosea. And the third cycle is Philippians, the sixth epistle to the Philippians. And I haven't written much on these subjects from the first century to the sixth century. It does get interesting from the seventh century. History is, to a certain extent, it is boring, especially the first few centuries. But when you do find some things in common with the scriptures, the decisions people had to make, and they took the wrong decisions. And however, you find in the scriptures within that same number, the same spoke, that the answer is written in there. You see a connection. You see how God is working in our society, in our history. Even though it does say that if you don't know your history, you are doomed to repeat it. And if you do know the history, you would learn what decisions you had to make, what mistakes you made, and it does make you a better person. It does give you discretion, a sense of judgment, proper judgment. And the person who was talking about in this YouTube channel is Bruce Gore. You can check his channel. And this is in relation to Pope Gregory and the Franks, the Brits. So Bruce Gore covered a lot in his lesson, and I don't want to repeat his things, except that he did mention that Pope Gregory was unwillingly he unwillingly became pope, but his zeal was to evangelize, especially to the Brits, the British. And people opposed him. I mean, why go evangelize to a bunch of savages? And but he said he's willing to take the risk. He sent out Augustine at some point, but his statement, his famous statement, was to be to live as Christ and to die as gain. Let me read that last phrase. He replied, "Whether he lived after the evangelization or died, it will be to the glory of God," according to the link. And that reminds me of the book of Philippians. But I still have to read more into his life story and Augustine's as well as to see whether or not it does coincide with the sixth books of the first, second, or third cycles. But there's more that happening in the 6th century, as you'll see later on. Okay, so the next important figure, which seems to me in the 6th century, was Emperor Justinian I, because up until this time, the Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, was basically Anatolia, or Asia Minor, and whereas up until the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire was standing, but at some point it fell because it got invaded by barbarians and so on. But Justinian, however, he taxed his people, and out of the income, he decided to conquer Africa, parts of Italy, even Rome, and Sicily, and so on. And of course, he conquered the Middle East as well. But later on, he fell in conflict with the Parthians, the Sassanids, in the east. But you'll notice, for example, the popes that existed from the 6th century, perhaps to the 8th or 9th century, if I'm not mistaken, they're usually Byzantine people. Byzantine, whether they be Syrian or Greek themselves, and they weren't elected unless approved by the Byzantine emperor himself. And up until perhaps 8th or 9th century, that's when they became more independent. And this reminds me of Joshua, because he did conquer the land of Canaan at that point. However, I still need to look the rest of the emperors and to see how it relates to the 6 books of the Bible, whether it be Joshua, Hosea, and Epistle to the Philippians.